Karen's face flushed with rage as she glared at the innocent service dog sitting calmly by its owner's side. "You can't bring that animal in here," she shrieked, drawing the attention of everyone in the crowded grocery store. Sarah gripped the handle of her service dog's harness, her heart pounding. "I have a legal right to have him with me," she stammered, her voice wavering. The dog sensed her distress and pressed closer to her leg. "I don't care about your rights." Karen spat, her eyes narrowing to slits. "That mutt is not allowed in this store. Get it out of here right now." Several shoppers paused to watch the confrontation, some reaching for their phones. But Karen seemed oblivious, her tirade only growing more unhinged. "Ma'am, please calm down," a store manager said tentatively, approaching the pair. "This customer has a service animal, which is permitted by law." Karen whirled on him, her finger jabbing the air. "I'm not moving an inch until you throw that thing out. It's unsanitary and—" Her rant was suddenly cut short as a voice rang out from the crowd. "Ma'am, this is being broadcast live. Everyone can see and hear you right now." Karen froze, her mouth agape, as the realization dawned on her. A hush fell over the store as everyone stared, transfixed, at the unfolding drama. Sarah felt a surge of relief, then confusion. "Live? What do you mean?" she asked the stranger, who was holding up a phone, its screen flashing a live indicator. "This woman's outburst is being streamed online right now," the Good Samaritan explained, casting a scathing look at the now mortified Karen. "Thousands of people are watching her make a fool of herself." Panic flashed across Karen's face as she whirled around, desperately scanning the crowd. Sure enough, several people had their phones out, recording the spectacle. "No, no, no," she cried, her voice shrill. "Turn that off. Stop filming me." But it was too late. The damage had been done. As the video continued to stream, Karen's tirade against the innocent service dog had become a viral sensation, shared and commented on by viewers around the world. Sarah stared at the unfolding scene, a mixture of shock and relief washing over her. The dog at her side wagged its tail, seemingly unaware of the drama unfolding around them. I don't understand," Sarah said, her brow furrowed. "Why is this happening?" The Good Samaritan offered her a sympathetic smile. "You're not the one who should be confused, ma'am. That woman just made a huge mistake." Karen's face had drained of color as the realization sank in. Thousands, maybe even millions, of people had just witnessed her shameful outburst. Her reputation, her carefully cultivated image as an upstanding member of the community, had been shattered in an instant. Panic set in as she frantically scanned the crowd, searching for an escape. But there was nowhere to hide. The entire store seemed to be focused on her, their expressions a mix of shock, disgust, and barely contained amusement. Sarah watched the unfolding scene with a mix of emotions. Part of her felt vindicated, seeing the woman who had so aggressively confronted her being publicly humiliated. But another part of her couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for Karen, whose world was crumbling before her very eyes. The store manager, sensing the need to defuse the situation, stepped forward. "Ma'am, I must ask you to leave the premises immediately. Your behavior is unacceptable and will not be tolerated." Karen's head snapped towards him, her eyes wild. "You can't do this to me," she shrieked. "I'm a respected member of this community. I demand you make that video disappear." The manager shook his head firmly. "I'm afraid I can't do that, ma'am. The video is out of my control now. If you don't leave voluntarily, I'll have to call the police." Karen's chest heaved as she fought to regain control. She knew that if the police were called, the humiliation would only deepen. Casting one last anguished look at the service dog and its owner, she turned and fled, pushing her way through the stunned crowd. As Karen stormed out of the store, Sarah felt a mix of emotions. Part of her was relieved that the confrontation was over, but she also couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for the woman. That must have been really hard for her. Sarah said to the Good Samaritan, who was still standing by her side. The stranger raised an eyebrow. Hard for her. Are you kidding me? She verbally assaulted you and your service dog, and then had the audacity to demand that the video be taken down. She deserved every bit of that public humiliation. Sarah nodded, her fingers gently stroking the soft fur of her dog's head. I know, but... She paused, searching for the right words. Even though she was wrong, I can't imagine how mortifying that must have been for her. To have her behavior broadcast like that, for the whole world to see. The Good Samaritan shook his head, a skeptical expression on his face. Look, I get that you're trying to be the bigger person here, but that woman was way out of line. She needed to be called out for her entitled, discriminatory behavior. Sometimes people need a public wake-up call to realize how their actions affect others. Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but the store manager approached them, a concerned look on his face. Ma'am, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Is there anything I can do for you? He asked, his voice laced with genuine concern. Sarah offered the manager a small, reassuring smile. I'm all right. Thank you. I appreciate your concern and the way you handled the situation. The manager nodded, visibly relieved. I'm just glad we were able to de-escalate things before they got out of hand. That woman's behavior was completely unacceptable, and I'll make sure to report the incident to the corporate office. The Good Samaritan, who had been listening intently, spoke up. You know, I hope this whole thing goes viral. Maybe it'll finally teach people like her that they can't just bully and harass others, especially those with service animals, without consequences. Sarah considered this, her brow furrowing. I understand your point, but I can't help but feel a little bad for her. Even though she was in the wrong, having all of that play out publicly must have been devastating. The manager nodded in agreement. I agree. While her actions were certainly reprehensible, I can't imagine how humiliating that must have been for her. Hopefully, this will be a wake-up call, and she'll learn from this experience. The Good Samaritan scoffed. Wake-up call? She's probably more worried about her precious reputation than actually learning anything. Some people just never change, no matter how much they're called out. Sarah sighed, knowing that the stranger had a point. She couldn't help but wonder what would become of Karen after this public shaming, and whether it would truly lead to any meaningful change in her behavior. As the crowd began to disperse, the store manager turned to Sarah with a sympathetic expression. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Please let me know if there's anything else I can do for you. Sarah smiled gratefully. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think I just need a moment to collect myself. She glanced down at her service dog, who was dutifully by her side, and felt a sense of calm wash over her. The Good Samaritan, who had been watching the exchange, spoke up. I can't believe that woman had the nerve to try and kick out your service dog. That's completely illegal, you know. Sarah nodded. I'm aware of my rights, but it's still upsetting when someone tries to deny them. I just want to live my life and do my best to manage my condition, you know. The Good Samaritan nodded in understanding. I get it. You shouldn't have to deal with that kind of harassment, especially in a public place. I'm glad we were able to call her out and hopefully teach her a lesson. Sarah sighed. I don't know if this will really change her behavior, though. Some people are just set in their ways, no matter how much they're confronted. The manager piped up. Well, I can assure you that we take incidents like this very seriously. We'll be reviewing the footage and taking appropriate action. Hopefully, this will be a wake-up call for her. Sarah nodded, feeling a sense of relief. At least the store was taking the situation seriously and was committed to addressing the issue. As she led her service dog out of the store, she couldn't help but wonder what the fallout from this incident would be for Karen. As Sarah made her way home, her mind raced with thoughts about the confrontation and its aftermath. While she was grateful that the store had stepped in to defend her rights, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease about the way it had all played out. I just can't help but feel a little sorry for her, you know. she said to her service dog, who gazed up at her with soulful eyes. I mean, I know she was totally in the wrong, but having all of that humiliation broadcast live for the whole world to see, that's got to be absolutely devastating. The dog let out a soft whine, as if in agreement. Sarah sighed and continued on, her steps slow and contemplative. When she arrived home, she immediately turned on her laptop, curious to see how the incident had unfolded online. As she scrolled through the various news articles and social media posts, she couldn't help but cringe at the level of vitriol and judgment being directed at Karen. "This is exactly what I was worried about," she murmured, shaking her head. "Sure, she messed up big time, but do people really have to be this cruel?" The comments ranged from gleeful mockery to calls for legal action and even death threats. Sarah felt a pang of sympathy for the woman, despite her own traumatic experience. Nobody deserves to be ripped apart like this, even if they were in the wrong. With a heavy heart, Sarah closed her laptop, determined to focus on her own well-being and recovery from the incident. But the nagging feeling that something more constructive could have come from this situation never quite left her. Over the next few days, the video of Karen's confrontation with Sarah and her service dog continued to spread like wildfire across the internet. The outpouring of outrage and condemnation was overwhelming, with thousands of people weighing in to criticize Karen's behavior and demand consequences. However, as the initial shock and anger began to subside, a more thoughtful dialogue started to emerge. Some viewers, like Sarah, began to question whether the level of public shaming and vitriol was truly warranted, or if it was simply perpetuating a cycle of cruelty. In an unexpected turn of events, Karen herself even reached out to local news outlets, expressing a sincere apology and a desire to make amends. She acknowledged her wrongdoing and admitted that the experience had been a humbling wake-up call, forcing her to confront her own biases and entitlement. Sarah, upon hearing this, felt a sense of relief and cautious optimism. "Maybe this really will be a turning point for her," she said to her service dog, who had been by her side throughout the ordeal. "Maybe she'll actually learn something from this experience, rather than just being crushed by the backlash." While the internet continued to debate the merits of public shaming and the notion of cancel culture, Sarah chose to focus on the positive, the fact that Karen seemed genuinely remorseful and willing to grow from this experience. It was a reminder that even in the face of intense conflict and judgment, there was still a potential for understanding and change. As Sarah and her service dog continued on their way, she couldn't help but feel a newfound sense of hope, not just for herself, but for the broader world around her. Perhaps, with empathy and open-mindedness, even the most entrenched biases could be overcome.